Good morning and welcome to Oasis Community Development Center and Oasis Church International's first virtual mental health community fair. We have been doing our community fairs since 2017. And we are trying to reach the masses. So we decided to do it virtual this year. I have some dynamic vendors here this morning / speakers who will present what they are doing right here in our city of Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach, Boynton Beach, Delray Beach. And just Palm Beach County. So I'm so excited. Thank you everyone who have joined us on the Zoom. We have also our social media platforms that are live, which is Oasis Church International, and that's Oasis Church, intl.org. Also, our Facebook is live as well as our YouTube. We're live there in Oasis Community Development Center. I am Lisa Nicholson, an evangelist at Oasis Church International, but I'm also the mental health coordinator. I also work as the vice president, not work, but it's a volunteer position, as vice president of the board of directors for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, who is partnering with Oasis Community Development Center and Oasis Church International. So I'll be representing NAMI on today as well. With us, we have our wonderful councilperson from the city of Riviera Beach, and I just like to introduce him, and he will come back later and he will speak about what he has been doing and will continue to do in the wonderful city that I was born and raised in and currently reside in, Riviera Beach. And that is none other than Councilman Douglas Lawson.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Ms. Lisa. Thank you to the organization, and thank you for everybody for just bringing awareness to the special need in our community. Mental health and mental wellness in our community is vital, and it's underutilized in our community. Growing up, we didn't really understand. So that's been my focus as an elected official. So from the governance side is bringing this awareness to the community to have this discussion. Typically, elected officials, our only responsibility is to pass a balanced budget and to pass policy. But my goal has been to reimagine what elected officials are doing across the country and having the real discussions that's impacting our community. So mental health and mental wellness is something that we talk about on a regular basis, and we'll go a little deeper into that at the 12 o'clock. But today we're getting set for our gloves up, guns down, mental health, mental wellness, suicide prevention, boxing, amateur boxing event. And we're going to have a lot of special guests here. So if anybody's tuning in, we'd love to have you come. We're going to be at Tate's Gym in Riviera Beach today. We're partnering with Sincere 2000 that does suicide prevention and mental health. And it's something that is near and dear to our hearts. But the conversation is vital. And Ms. Lisa, thank you. Thank you for bringing all these amazing minds together to talk about mental health, mental wellness, and supports in this community, because that's what we need, just to be working as a village. So thank you for having me. I'm blessed to be here. I serve as the board chair of the city of Riviera Beach. I've been serving for the past 5 years, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Lawson. As you heard him say that they are sponsoring with Sincere 2000, and she has been one of our speakers several times. Sincere 2000 is sponsoring a Guns Down, Gloves Up event here at Tate's Gym. That's why she could not be a part today. And we have very special guests. We will post the flyer shortly as well. After we hear from Rhonda Rogers, Mack this morning. We're going to hear from her in a few minutes, but I just wanted to take the time just to let you know that mental health is certainly dear to my heart from a lived experience, and our church, Oasis Church International, along with our 501c3 organization, has poured into the community over the past 7 years as it relates to mental health, mental illnesses. It is dear dear to my pastor's heart, and I have to give a shout out to her. It would be remiss if I did not. So shout out to Pastor Cassandra V. Fullwood. She is our senior pastor at Oasis Church International. Thank you so much for everything that she's done. So we have reached out from a community mental health standpoint as it relates to youth, as it relates to families, as it relates to individuals dealing with mental illnesses. And we provide resources to individuals. We're not a clinic, we're not physicians or clinicians, but we provide resources to our local community and church. So one of our resources in our local community is none other than my cousin, who I'm so proud to be related to, as well as my sorority sister, Rhonda Rogers Mack, and she's on now. And Rhonda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so very much for having me, Lisa. This is wonderful. Rhonda's Promise is a nonprofit that I started in 2021. We focus on Black women and girls in South Palm Beach County. We focus on Boynton, Delray, and Boca Raton area. And one of our programs is our program called Hey Sister. And two of your speakers today have been speakers for me, as well as yourself. Kenya Madison, as well as Terry Ferguson, have been in my group. And what we do is we come together as Black women to talk about mental illness. We know in our community there's a stigma around it. So we try to make an open space for us to come together as sisters to share. And as you mentioned before, I also suffer with anxiety. And so it's also a safe space for myself to be able to lean on my sisters when I'm having those terrible days. And so I just want to encourage everyone to follow us on Facebook, Rhonda's Promise. We also have a Hey Sisters support group on Facebook. It's a private group that we put things in from time to time, but it's intended to be there to engage you and to really nurture you and support you in this space. I'm going to also drop my email in the chat in our Facebook. Our website in the chat. I can't stay on with you today because I have another commitment, but I really just wanted to be here to introduce Rhonda's Promise and take this opportunity, especially during Mental Health Month, to really highlight what we're doing here in South Palm Beach County. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. We so appreciate you taking a few moments to be with us this morning and sharing Rhonda's Promise. I remember getting that call to come and attend, and it was absolutely phenomenal. There were tears in eyes and laughs and fun at the same time, and food. So Rhonda always does such a phenomenal job getting young women together. And Rhonda, you also work with youth as well.
I do. I have a youth program. We do every year our annual Girls Chat Conference for middle and high school girls. We just recently had an etiquette class that was absolutely phenomenal, led by Martine, and it really just gave our girls the confidence they need. It was so wonderful to see them come from being shy, couldn't even make eye contact with me, to shaking hands and smiling and taking pictures with strangers who they had become good friends with and over the course of 3 hours. So we're here. We're always thinking of new programs. Our mission and goal is to assist women and girls. So if you have a need or you have something that we may not think about, just because you don't see the program on our website doesn't mean we can't do it. And so I'm very collaborative in that way. So if you think of something and you would like to partner with Rhonda's Promise and it fits for Black women and girls, please reach out. We're here to assist.
Okay, before you leave, Rhonda, if you could just tell us about the award you just received.
Yes. Thanks to the community, living the dream. Chantel Brown was able to. I got nominated actually by one of my board members, Rosa White. So I thank her for nominating Rhonda's Promise. I was just totally shocked when Chantel reached out to us, but the community actually had to vote, and so that's really what touched my heart. That it wasn't decided by folks in a room or a board meeting. It was really decided by the community. So I thank you for naming Rhonda's Promise a nonprofit of the year. That really touched my heart.
Thank you so much. So go and enjoy.
Thank you, everyone. But I will put in the chat my website and email before I leave.
And she has a QR code right there as well. So yes, that's perfect. So if you could scan her QR code as well and attend some of her events, they are absolutely phenomenal. Send your youth to the events. When you see Rhonda's Promise come up, you will not be disappointed. Thank you so much, Rhonda.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Okay, thank you. All right. So we had someone also that was going to talk about mindful meditation on this morning. So I'll just speak quickly on mindful meditation. She did have an accident, so we're keeping her in our prayers. So briefly, I just wanted to say that it is so important that every day we take a moment and to take care of ourselves. We take a moment to corral our minds. First thing in the morning is always the best, but even if you cannot, Rhonda is sharing her information. So please get the information for Rhonda. Those that are on Facebook, the information is there for you as well. But she speaks about mindful meditation and deep breathing. So it's so important just to take the time to breathe, because us as human beings, and I would say even, I'm not biased or anything, but women, we are always like on the go, and we don't take a moment to like relax and just breathe. And you need that moment sometimes. I find myself at work, taking deep breaths. Sometimes I'll close my door and I would take, even if it's 5 deep breaths. So let's do some deep breathing right now. I used to do this with my It's a Girls thing. So what we'll do is just breathe in, and when we breathe out, we're going to breathe out with our mouths like kind of pursed, like that's the way we would breathe with our mouths. Okay, so we're going to take a deep breath in. Let's go 1, 2, 3. And breathe out. We're going to do it again. Inhale and breathe out. And we're going to do it one more time. Inhale and breathe out. All right, so that was just a little taste of it, but they have so many apps out there if you're interested in it. I like to put on Deputy Keys. He is a gospel musician, and he is phenomenal. He will put you to sleep. He will have you in worship. Whatever it is that you need, his music is so anointed. So I listen to him often. Even if I don't have on my Bible app where I'm having scriptures being read, I will also listen to Dappy T Keys. It's Dappy Keys. And then they have a lot of other mindful meditation music, the ocean, whatever it is, where you can just corral your mind. And if you find yourself in a space that you just need just that break, and you cannot play any music, deep breathing is always good. In the way that I just did with our mouths pursed, you can do that when no one is even watching. You breathe in and let your stomach actually go out. So if your stomach is not going out, you're not doing it right. So you breathe in where you're releasing all of the air through your stomach, and then you breathe out. So we're going to move. That was just Lisa's version. So we're going to go right ahead on to such a beautiful young lady who is also a sorority sister, but most importantly, she is my sister in Christ, and I met her through NAMI. And she is an awesome host. She's an awesome facilitator, and she has actually sat where I am on today and ask questions. I would like anyone that is on Zoom to please feel free to ask questions to our speakers and get involved. We did have a contest this for this event, and there are 2 winners, but in order for you to get those Wawa gift cards, we need your participants to log in. We need you to log in. We need you to participate. And we have $25 gift cards for 2 individuals that really went above and beyond when it comes down to inviting others. So thank you so much, and I'll release their names later if they go ahead and join us. But I think I see one of their participants here. So I am going to introduce Miss Kenya Madison. She is such a sweetheart, and she also has such a story. And Kenya is going to tell what she does in the city of Delray, and what she has been doing, what she will be doing. She has a podcast. So Kenya is doing some great things. I'm going to take a moment and listen to that podcast after this session on today. But Kenya, thank you so much for being here, and please share with our guests.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, my sister. Good morning, everyone that's out there that will see this. Good day. Thank you for having me. I'm so just grateful to be in this space, to take a moment to slow down and breathe along with you. Those of you who know Healthier Delray or know Kenya know that I've been about 2 different places before I got into this space this morning. So I needed a reminder to just breathe, slow down, draw some air into your lungs and engage your core and breathe it out slowly. And it sets a whole different tone for how you say hello and good morning too, because we move a lot and we move fast. So thank you is what I have to say for allowing us to come together this morning. And I am the Senior Director of Healthier Delray Beach. We are a behavioral health initiative that is seated in the heart of the historic Set neighborhood, focused on the life and longevity of those who are living there within. Our initiative is community-led, community-driven. And so that just means like people get to show up in community as they are. We don't ask for anyone to put on masks. In fact, the Get Your Green On campaign about mental health awareness and trauma-informed care is to really bring awareness to the fact that it's okay to be okay. It's okay not to be okay, but guess what? Please do not stay stuck there. There's a number of supports, and we try to just turn on a bright green light and make sure that people have guidance and direction to the supports that they need to mitigate the challenges that they have in their life.
Awesome. I've heard so much about what you do with Healthier Delray. So what has been some of the challenges in the city of Delray as it relates to those with mental health illnesses, and though the population that is coming to you in the city of Delray?
Thank you for asking. And that question for me is a difficult one to answer with just one sentence. So what I will sum it up and say is we are still fighting stigma. Stigma is real, and we are still educating around stigma. And so okay, it's Saturday and I'm gonna be a jokey girl. Forgive me, I'm a jokey girl. All right. So when I say stigma, I really do have to pronounce the T, because then otherwise I'm saying sigma, and then people think that I'm talking about my sorority, or I'm talking about the fraternity, or something that has absolutely nothing to do with emotional well-being. And then I can see when their eyes shift and they're in a whole different lane and they're like, I'm not really sure what she's talking about. So I breathe and I bring it back down and I say, okay, stigma is all around. We look at stigma in television commercials and on billboards and on bumper stickers all day long. right? We have stigma show up in private jokes or in public conversation too, especially when we want to categorize a specific behavior, right? And it's not until it comes knocking at your door and somebody projects back at you what stigma really means. And for me, stigma feels like placing a label or a sticker of judgment upon somebody's behavior based upon something you know nothing about. And so the biggest challenge that still exists is bringing greater awareness to the fact that we all have mental health, just like we have physical health. We all sometimes struggle with the emotions that show up in us, whether we woke up this morning and had our morning tea, morning coffee after our daily devotional, and we still somehow found ourselves teary on the way to work. Is that not okay? I didn't neglect my faith practice. I didn't neglect my self-care. I journaled a little bit, but guess what? Some things really are a bit challenging for a person to just show up with a big bright smile as they're moving through it, especially when it just happened. Stigma also means timestamps. Stigma means what's going on with her? Why she? Trauma-informed care says, what happened, Kenya? What happened, y'all? What happened, friend? And waiting for the answer and listening to the story that comes back. Listening to the voice that's doing its absolute best not to cry. That.
That's really good.
Fighting stigma, erasing stigma. And that's why I said I could go, but I'm gonna just keep it concise and say fighting stigma is our biggest challenge.
Okay, that's really, really good. And in terms of your hours of operation, can you share that with the masses, your hours of operation? Who can come? What happens if it's after hours?
All right, so specific to Healthier Delray Beach, we're an initiative. We're not like a brick and mortar space. We are a community partner that functions and exists as a network. So all of our partners have their own business hours and hours of operation. When it comes to reaching me, you can always reach Kenya at Kenya, like the country, Kenya.Delray at htpbc.org. We are on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram. I'm Kenya Delray Beach. There's Healthier Delray Beach. You can find us there. And my phone number is 561-926-3032. And you are welcome to call or text. If something is challenging you, I will send you back after a conversation and just hearing what some of the challenges are. I will send you back a bit of resource and connect you to some or all of the many and multiple partners that we have, to include 988-211, NAMI PBC, Mental Health America, and our very hardy network of mental health clinicians that have been vetted through the Healthier Delray Beach network over the period of our existence. So that's what community and anyone really who knows how to follow any of those channels, that's what you have access to. And that's how you can receive it.
Yes, that's what I like, because, and I wanted the masses to know this is not just like, this is not a your typical brick and mortar. This is somewhere that you can go to anytime. This is a resource. This is Kenya has such a heart for what she does, and I met her a few years ago, and the passion is all over her. Like she say, she's healthier Delray. So I like the fact that we have different organizations in our communities within Palm Beach County. So that's why I invited, people from different areas. So if you know someone that is in the city of Delray that is struggling with the mental illness, or a family member that knows someone, in their family, or they're dealing with it, because it is not just an individual, but it's also their family that has to deal with it. Can you speak to that quickly, Kenya, about the family member?
Speak to which?
So
What's the
family
question?
members, do you get family members to come to you often for some type of resources?
Oh, do we serve it like the age range and the context that we serve?
Yes.
Okay, 0 to 110. If you have, no, seriously, like we have access to services for moms that are expecting, for infant and child services through many and multiple partners. I mean, from daycares to school aftercare programs, out of school time spaces, even people kind of sometimes look left and right and say, I don't know where to call, or I don't know where to go. Well, there's a lot of big box programs and services that are sitting, within programs on every corner. Every school site that I know of has aftercare and out of school time care programs embedded. Many of our partners come through the same processes and pipeline that school district supports come through, right? So all schools now have some layer or level of behavioral health professional or mental health professional on its campus that's building relationships with students. So when families do come and ask, we've got generations under one roof, I need, this is what's happening. And usually people do come in a very vulnerable situation. That's what I will say. All the things that I shared before are like crisis or near crisis. But then there are some people who are feeling vulnerable and not quite in crisis. So they're the ones who are reaching out most frequently. And those are the families that we are supporting in a whole generational touch point. What's going on, what happened, listen for the needs, and then real time turn back to a provider, a partner, a systems partner, an organization, an institution, even if it's for advocacy. Because if I come back and I'm like, I don't really know if there's a service for that yet, or let me see if that exists here. Sometimes you get unique circumstances, and I do have to like look left and right and be like, that's a tough one. If it's a challenge for me and I come back, oh man, I'm turning back in advocacy and somebody's gonna know about it. So I mean, our mission statement, our Healthier Delray Beach mission statement says that we are a trusted advocate for the behavioral health needs of the set community. And so when we turn a listening ear, we hope that we're able to get back through either a provider, a partner, or some other pipeline, a solution that will mitigate what's happening in these people's homes, all ages under one roof that share the same biome. No, we didn't ask for the science today, but
No.
I'm gonna zip my lip.
Thank you so much, Kenya. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone on the Zoom have any questions for Ms. Kenya Madison? Okay, and if not, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you so much, Kenya. We hope that you can stick around with us and give your provide your information in the chat as well. And then we'll be checking Facebook if anybody have any comments or questions. All right, now we are going to move right along to NAMI, Palm Beach County. And this is my heartbeat. So I'm going to ask that our tech person just put NAMI's information on the screen. And I've been actually with NAMI in terms of work, a member of NAMI since 2007 when I had the need to reach out to NAMI. And then I ended up becoming more of an active member. 3 years ago, I applied for the board, and I was actually asked to be the vice president of the board, and was voted in as the vice president. And I absolutely love NAMI because when I needed them, they were there. And I see what NAMI does for the community. I see what NAMI from a national level does for the United States and down to its local organizations. So NAMI Alliance on Mental Illness, Palm Beach County, just to give you a brief history, we were founded in 1983 as a beacon of hope and support for individuals and families. And that's why I like to mention families, because when you have an individual that is affected by mental illness, their family is affected as well. And we provide education, advocacy, support services to empower individuals in navigating their mental health journeys with resilience and dignity. You don't have to walk around with your head held down. You don't have to worry about the stigma, as Kenya was just talking about. You can get the help that you need, and it's free. All of our programs and services is absolutely free. Through diverse programs, including support groups, educational classes, presentations, advocacy initiatives. We work tirelessly to break down the stigma, increase awareness, and promote understanding of mental health conditions, ensuring that no one faces mental illness alone. And just to let you know that there are 1 out of 1 in 5 adults, there's someone that will experience a mental illness. That's a lot of people. So when you're in a group of people, just count to 5, and that next person is going to have a mental illness. So 1 in 5 will have a mental health condition. The contact information is here. If you would just go ahead and go to the next, the inside of that. Yes. So some of our presentations that we provide in programs, we have a presentation that is absolutely phenomenal, and it's called Ending the Silence for Families. We actually have had NAMI on one of our virtual panels as well as forums to present the NAMI Ending the Silence for Families, and is directed towards either students, teachers, or caregivers of students or teachers. And they pretty much give like real life examples of what can happen during like a mental health episode. They also give like the warning signs, to look for, and then the steps that you should take if you see someone that is experiencing a mental health condition, because we all are either working with someone. We have children out there that are in school. We have college students that are out there that are also in school, and you need to know the signs and what to do next. So NAMI does that presentation. We also have NAMI in our own voice, and it is where we have individuals with lived experiences to talk about their different steps of when they were diagnosed with it. They talk about the stigma attached to the mental health condition that they have, or mental illness. And then it's also incorporated with the video. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you are interested in having NAMI to present this information to your group, please reach out to NAMI, and we will be more than happy to do so. So we do have general meetings that are educational, talk about issues relevant to mental health, and the talks are open to the greater community. It's not closed off at all. We have a stigma-free presentation that aims to break down the barriers of stigmas and foster understanding around mental health in the workplace. So that's very important as well. My profession is director of human resources, and we just had NAMI at my workplace for Mental Health Awareness Month. And it was so phenomenal to hear the NAMI in our own voice, and our employees are still talking about it because they felt very comfortable. You have a real life person that have a lived story, and there's so many myths that are attached, you know, to the different mental health illnesses. And when you speak to these individuals, you know, or hear from them, it's just like, okay, I remember when, you know, for example, schizophrenia. We had one of our volunteers to talk about schizophrenia. And, you know, back in the day, we would think that this was somebody that was just like totally crazy, but that is not the case. They talked about the hearing, you know, of the voices and what could trigger that. So just reach out, even for your own mental health. It is real good just to get information. NAMI Family and Friends is a seminar that informs and support people who have loved ones with a mental health condition. Participants learn about the diagnosis, the treatment, recovery, communication strategies, crises, preparation, and NAMI resources. Then we have the Sharing Hope, the mental health in the Black and African ancestry communities. And that's where we go out and create a safe space for people, you know, to talk about mental health in our community as a African American. And not just that, but in the faith community, it was not something that we talked about as little children, as young, you know, people. In the faith community, we were taught you pray about it and everything is going to be okay, which I still believe today that God is Jehovah Rapha, and he is a God that heals, but there's also clinicians that we need to turn to. If we need a clinician, it's okay to go to a clinician. If you need to see a therapist, go to a therapist so you can get the help that you need. We have the NAMI peer-to-peer program, and that's for those that are living with mental health conditions. The mentoring program, the peer council, the Wednesday drop-in center. This is something that I did, and I was ministering. I was working full-time as a director of human resources, married, went through a divorce, and there are different times that I just stepped in and no one knew what I did, who I was, you know, besides giving my name, and it blessed me just to go in there. We have support groups, the connection group, family support groups. We have the NAMI Family to Family, which is an 8-week session, and it is so good. I actually referred someone I know very well whose family member was dealing with a crisis, and it affected the family at large, even with her own children. So the parents did attend this family to family group session, and they really enjoyed it, and it helped them a lot. NAMI Home Front is a class for family, caregivers, and friends of military service members and veterans with mental health conditions. We cannot leave out our veterans, our military service members, because they go through a lot, and just to fight for our country and to protect our country. So this is for them, their family members, to understand the challenges and improve their ability to support their service members or veterans. NAMI Basics is a class for parents, guardians, and other family caregivers who are caring for youth age 22 or younger, or who are experiencing mental health symptoms. And then we have additional programs and services, integrative resilience trainings. We have the resource line. We have yoga and wellness workshops, and NAMI Smarts for advocacy. That's that hands-on training, and I went through that, and it is very good, and I would recommend that for anyone. NAMI Provider Program and NAMI Walks, and we are now beginning to plan our NAMI Walks, and this is one of our biggest fundraisers that we have for NAMI, and we do this every year, and it's the first Saturday in November. And right now we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for captains, you know, for the walks. If you want to get a group together and walk, and you can even do it your own way. So we have it now where you don't have to come out. We would love for everyone to come out to the park, but if you can actually walk your own way, do whatever you want to do your own way to support NAMI walks. So I'm going to stop talking about NAMI because I'm sure that everyone can see that I absolutely have the heartbeat and passion for the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, all right. We are going to go ahead and move along, and I would like to move along to Miss Ezsa Allen. Miss Ezsa Allen, she's going to come before Councilman Douglas Lawson. He's going to talk about what he has been doing in Riviera Beach. So Miss Ezsa Allen, I have had the pleasure of working alongside Miss Ezsa Allen 4 years now as well. She is a phenomenal therapist, a phenomenal individual. I absolutely love her. When we did the It's a Girls thing online, I did it online for the entire time during COVID. And it got to the point where we needed to have some private discussions. So we start calling it our intimate sessions. And Ezsa Allen would come into our intimate sessions, and she would just volunteer her time just to speak with individuals that had questions, that had issues, whether it was stress, whether it was stigma related. Ezsa volunteered every week or every other week for months and months with these young ladies. So thank you so much, Ezsa. I'm going to turn it over to you.
No problem. And thank you for having me again. I appreciate every time that you've asked me to come on. You know, it's a true passion of mine to try to break the stigma of mental health and just kind of normalize mental health in our homes. Again, my name is Ezsa Allen. I am a therapist. I've been a therapist for over 15 years now. I started my own agency now that caters predominantly to the minority communities. I have therapists that are Black and Brown. I also started a nonprofit called Mind Over You, and we do a lot of events in the community to promote mental health awareness, intervention, prevention, again, to the minority communities to break that stigma. I have an online presence to give education, to give coping skills, whether it be for grief, whether it be for mood disorder, or whether it be for depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever it may be. I try to have a section on there that you can just go in and get that information on there. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ezsa. So question, if you can kind of just talk about your experiences with working with those in the community, some of the challenges that you have encountered working in the community as it relates to trying to help those with mental health conditions, whether it be insurance and whatever it may be. Stigma, Kenya mentioned it, but I know that, and I'm a huge advocate for mental health as well, but I know that there's a lot of individuals that struggle because they do not have the resources. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you have faced as a practitioner as it relates to mental illness that you can tell the community that they can overcome?
Yes, so I have a couple of challenges. Children are my passion, so that's kind of where I started in my profession, to reach the children who needed help. And I noticed that once I was reaching the children, I went into the school system. I got a contract with the school district, and I went into the school systems, and I went to the Title I schools, which is kind of the low poverty schools. And I realized that when I was going into the school system, and when the school would give me the referral, I had to get consents from parents. And that was my biggest barrier, if you will, because the parents didn't want, one, that their kids was seen by a therapist because of that, stigma. They told me, I'm their parent, they can talk to me. I could never get a consent from parents. So I couldn't continue to see the kids in the beginning. It was very, very difficult to reach the parents. And that's kind of how Mind Over You was created, because I wanted to just kind of give free education and knowledge of what mental health really is. We all have mental health. We all have a brain and how we operate. And we can have a good mental health and operate in a way to where it's most healthy, or we can have a mental health that's not the best, or in a sense to where it's unbalanced, if you will. And then we're going to have these different disorders or illnesses that seep in. And if we don't learn how to deal or cope with it, it's going to take a toll on us. So getting my parents, again, my Black and brown parents, to consent to therapy for their kids was one. Then once I evoked that spirit of like, okay, maybe my kid do need mental health, is not such a bad idea. That's when the issue of how to obtain therapy, because either some people didn't have the insurance or they didn't have the funding for it. So, just figuring out how to get that therapeutic services for them without insurance or without that funding was another barrier. And then the third barrier would be, again, that stigma of just, some people just look at it as a weakness. Some people look at it as that's like in the olden days, like not even the olden days, like just recently, even today, we still consider that people who have illnesses, the crazies. We don't want to, be associated with a mental illness. We can all day, every day have a physical ailment, like we can be sick with COVID, we can have a broken leg. But the moment we have an emotional impairment or a mood disorder or anxiety or depression, now, we want to like shun that and or hide that, so to speak, from society. So just that stigma, again, is really huge. It's really huge when people, when you try to go in there and you try to normalize it, and then people just kind of look at it and it's like something that they just don't want to associate with because of that huge stigma from the past, that it's just not something that we take care of. And even back in the days, you don't take care of your emotional sense. You had to do so much more to survive. Right. So you're working, you're taking care of kids, the emotional part was not something that was taken care of. And then it wasn't taught down to our children. So it's something that's just now that we have to realize that our emotional health is just as important as our physical health. And if we don't take care of our emotional health, then our physical will kind of tear down. So those are three things that I would say is the biggest barrier.
That's so good. And I hope that the masses are really, really honed in to what Ezsa is saying, because, if you don't take care of you, and especially our children, she works with children, but even you, let's talk about you. If you don't take care of you, when you go on a plane, they talk about put your oxygen mask on first. You can't help anybody else until you put on your oxygen mask. So it's so important that you put that oxygen mask on, get the help that you need, because a lot of times when we have children that are suffering with mental illnesses, a lot of times it is in the generational line. And because of the way that we were brought up, we were more ignorant to it. And also with the stigma, the first thing that parents may say is nothing wrong with me, I'm fine, whatever. But take care of yourself so you can take care of your child or your children. And if you need help, reach out. You were going to say something, Ezsa?
No, completely. I'm agreeing with you. You have to do that, and I think that sometimes I had, like in the beginning, I started this 15 years, but in the beginning, that face mask first approach, I had to learn that way, because for me, it's always taking care of someone else or my children first or everyone else first. So, I come last because I can take care of me, but I need to take care of my kids. But to understand the concept behind that, it's very true.
Yes, that's so good. I'm so glad you brought that up, because, I think about when I was diagnosed, it was back in 2007. And, I was a mother of three. And I found out going through therapy, now, like being in my 40s, now I'm not 40, but being in my 40s, I learned about little girl Lisa, and little girl Lisa was that one that was raising her kids, but I was so broken. And when you're broken, you cannot give out of an empty cup. And if you're broken, then the glass is broken, and there's nothing that you can give out of that. So I was working so hard to do that, but in the midst of all of that, there are many mistakes that I made, and there are many mistakes and decisions that I made that impacted my kids, especially as it relates to like relationships. Sometimes we have to wait on God. And if you, depending on where your brokenness lies, mine was a lot of rejection and abandonment. So, I looked for love in all the wrong places and, rushed into, relationships or marriages, and it was not conducive for me, number one. So if it's not conducive for me, then it's not going to be conducive for my children. So, when we make decisions as parents, we have to keep our children in mind, always to keep your children in mind. So now I'm looking, back at, thank God brought me through, my children are good. And, I'm very, proud of my children, but there's a lot to be said, about not understanding, not having the information. But now we live in a day and time where information about mental illness, there's so much information out there. There's basically no excuse, for us not to get the help that we need. So, Ezsa, in terms of an advocacy standpoint, I know that you do a lot with the city of Riviera Beach as well. So, can you just share a little of what you have done?
Yes, so I partner with Councilman Lawson in providing free events within the city to discuss a new topic every month or every other month. We will talk about depression, again, anxiety, PTSD, any kind of mood disorders. We talked about both bipolar, we talked about schizophrenia. We give different coping skills on how to cope with those disorders. I also even go deep into kind of helping people understand how we get to that point. It's not just, focusing on, it's not only focusing on disorder or the illnesses or what you may be dealing with at that moment, but helping you to focus on how you got there. Because we all have a story, we all have an issue that we're dealing with in life. No matter who you are, life's going to hit you, right? So I try to help people understand the beginning portions, like, dealing with low income, dealing with abuse, dealing with unhealed trauma, dealing with grief. Grief is a huge one that can put not only your body, your mind, but your soul in a space to where you just don't want to do anything for a while. So getting people to understand it's just life and how you deal with life. And I even tie in like these different depressions, anxiety, PTSD with an emotion factor. And I try to compare anxiety with the emotion fear, and depression with the emotion sadness, and PTSD with just understanding that excuse me, just that trauma, that unhealed trauma, that if we don't heal it, it's going to linger in our subconscious. And our subconscious have a funny way of kind of navigating its own self if we don't deal with things. And it just kind of pops out at any moment. If we see something, hear something, smell something, it can trigger us right back into that same trauma that we experienced maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago. And it come right back to us like it's brand new. So just understanding those core issues on how to either deal with it properly so that you don't go down to that rabbit hole, or if you're already in the rabbit hole, how to deal with coping skills to get back out of it.
That's really, really good. Thank you so much, Ezsa. Oh my God, that was phenomenal. Please share your information in the chat, Ezsa, if you have not already. And thank you so much for everything that you do. Ezsa has also spoken at our live events that we've had. We've had a number of live events that that we've number of live events. I'm trying to think of the place. Urban Youth Impact. Urban Youth Impact. Hopefully we'll be having another one coming up in the next couple of months at Urban Youth Impact. But yes, so thank you so much, Ezsa. And we now have Councilperson Douglas Lawson here, who Ezsa has spoken of as well. They work closely together. But Councilperson Lawson, I am going to turn it over to you just to introduce yourself again, talk about your passion for mental health and what made you choose to go into the mental health arena as it relates to affecting the people in the Riviera Beach community, which we so need, so please, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Lisa. And again, my name is Councilman Douglas Lawson. I'm the board chair in the city of Riviera Beach and just honored to be here. I just saw your last speaker was a community. We actually started on this mission about 10 years ago, where we worked together doing suicide prevention, mental health awareness, mental health wellness in our community. And we decided to continue to pivot. I came from the private sector doing mental health, where I had a mental health substance abuse treatment center. And we did very well. We provided free support and free service for the residents of our community, but it's very costly. The service is very expensive, and we're not allowed the opportunity, and a lot of people from our community don't have those benefits afforded to them. If it's not insurance paid, cash pay can be substantial. And in Riviera Beach, we have the third lowest median income in Palm Beach County. So having access to these resources was something that myself, Ezsa, Sincere 2000, Mind Over You, and different organizations are trying to address. Namely, NAMI, that Ms. Lisa is a part of, was trying to focus on how can we provide these resources to Riviera Beach. So I was elected in 2019 as the elected official for the city of Riviera Beach, District 5. And what I wanted to do is see how government affairs could instill and provide that resource and support. And working with these different organizations and providing those free resources. So we went on a mission, a journey to start doing free mental health group sessions, therapy sessions, and provide that support to residents of Riviera Beach. And for the last 5 years, we've been doing that, having our monthly sessions. Today, I'm actually running around, Ms. Lisa, so I'm sorry that we're setting up for our Gloves Up, Guns Down, Boxing with the Cause, hosted by Sincere 2000. We're going to have special guests from all over the world. Mike Tyson will be here. Hopefully he's going to speak a little bit about mental health and his journey. But this is just to bring awareness. It's to bring awareness to suicide prevention, mental health, and the struggles that plague our community. The initiative that we've set out in Riviera Beach is to create a mental health advisory board. Somebody that can work with our county, our state, our federal legislators to help provide funding to the minority community. The Black and brown community struggles with this. So we have to provide and find the resources, because this support and the service isn't free. We've done it free of charge. And I just want to commend and I praise Ezsa, because every month she provides these group sessions. She provides individual sessions, one-on-ones, along with Ms. Melvin and Sincere 2000 to provide free service. But running this business and coming from the private sector, it's very expensive. So just providing this free service, I commend her for what she's done and for the efforts that she did in this community right now. And I think that's the biggest thing that we need to do, Ms. Lisa, is the engagement, is finding out and electing individuals that's going to focus on the needs of the community and see how we can work together with them, because government works for the people. We are just stewards of the residents. We have a fiduciary responsibility, but we also have a need that needs to be filled. And if we're not listening to the needs of the people, we're not actually addressing the concerns of our residents. And that's what we try to do right now in Riviera Beach and Palm Beach County as a whole.
Thank you so much, Councilperson Lawson. I have to say, growing up in Riviera Beach, this is something that we never heard of. And before Councilperson Lawson actually got into that position, as our councilman in Riviera Beach, you just never heard of it. So we have people that come out, we have families that are individuals and families that are being impacted by what they are doing. And Ezsa, Councilperson Lawson, and I just want to call him Doug Lawson because I'm getting my tongue is getting twisted now. So, Mr. Doug Lawson, I so appreciate what you're doing, and I want to say continue. And I am here, to help. NAMI will be, enhancing our advocacy as well. So we want to get to those state legislators. We want to get the federal funding, whatever we need in our cities, in our government, for our therapists, even Kenya, who gives of her time, and Rhonda, who gives of her time, and the other individuals that you're getting ready to meet that gives of their time, just to help our community, because we want to see less suicide. We want to see less sales. We were told when we were younger that, the cells were built for Black people based on our test scores, and there's validity to it. Absolutely. So we want to see less of our people going into jail, and that's people of all colors, period. We want the crimes to stop. We want to live where we can help individuals live the most rewarding lives that they can. Just because you have a mental illness does not mean that you cannot live a successful and a healthy life. So, Councilperson Lawson, thanks so much again. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Lawson? Okay, so if we could, if you could put your information in the chat, or Ezsa, if you could help. I know it looks like he's driving. Put information in the chat, that would be great. And we're going to put up the flyer for the boxing on today. I want to go over. I mean, that's Mike Tyson. And you're going to be surprised of this fee. Yes. So the fee is $20, and it's at Tate's Recreation Center. And I may just want to ask about the time. What is the time? Isn't it something that's happening this evening?
Yeah, so it starts, the doors open at 4. The first bouts, it's amateur boxers from all over the state. So we just had some kids that just arrived at Tate's. They're coming in from Clearwater, they're coming in from Miami, they're coming in from Tallahassee, and they are all partnering and working in different gyms. So these amateur boxings are coming in. We're gonna have 15 different bouts, and we're gonna have amazing kids from the ages of 6 up to 30 that are gonna be boxing. Mike Tyson will be arriving around 6 p.m. and other boxers will hopefully be in town as well to just support the cause. They're going to be there to support these children.
That is so awesome. I mean, this is phenomenal what Sincere 2000 is doing, and partnering in partnership with Councilman Lawson. We are hopefully people out there see, and we just wish you the best, and that it be safe and blessed. And I am definitely going to try to zoom on over. Thank you so much, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you so much for having me. Continue the amazing work that you're doing, Ms. Lisa. You are amazing. And thank you for bringing us together. This is needed. This is vital in our community. So we'll continue to push this and demand this from your elected officials, your leadership. Demand that they actually provide support for these, because this is how we get it done. Don't just make sure that you vote in March and in November. Just make sure that you're holding them accountable year round. So if they can continue to provide this support, they have access. So please, thank you, Ms. Lisa.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today. All right, that was just absolutely phenomenal. See, this is what we do in Palm Beach County. This is in our city, Riviera Beach. We've heard from Boynton Beach. We heard from Delray Beach. And now we are going to hear from Miss Terry Ferguson. Terry also, she is a wonderful, beautiful clinician. And I met Miss Terry Ferguson through NAMI, and it was at our Pathways to Hope conference. We just kind of like, it was just like something just happened. We clicked when we met that night. We all, had the same vision. So I want Terry to go ahead and just tell about what she does and in the community. Which community are you in or and serve, Terry? And then just talk about mental illness and some of the challenges and what you have done to combat, some of the challenges, the stigma, and a word to our audiences as well.
Absolutely. First of all, good afternoon, and thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you, NAMI. Thank you, Oasis Church, for this opportunity and just for this platform and putting this information out for the public. There's always, 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 whether it's Mental Health Month or not, Mental Health Awareness Month or not, always an opportunity, a good time to share information about mental health. So I appreciate you and what you're doing and your commitment to doing this. Definitely. So I am Terry Ferguson. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I provide psychotherapy here in the city of Boynton Beach is where my brick and mortar is located. However, I service all of Florida. I definitely get most clients from, of course, Palm Beach County, and that includes Riviera Beach, West Palm Beach, Lake Worth, Boynton, and even a little south of here, Delray and Boca Raton. And in my practice, I provide services for youth ages 12 and up, and of course, adults, individual, as well as couples work. And my area of a focus is depression, anxiety, trauma. I am certified as a parent coach, and especially with parent coaching, I focus on parents of children who have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is another whole big thing, right? But yeah, working with parents in individual as well as group settings, because I've done that throughout Palm Beach County. I've been in the field for more than 30 years. I've been as a therapist for approximately 10 years combined. Starting out when I first graduated, I did some uh, private therapy at that time, about 2.5 years, and really felt like, okay, I want to learn more to be able to bring more into these sessions with the clients. And so then I went out in the field. I've worked, my goodness, with so many different organizations from teaching at Palm Beach State to providing advisory there to working in community mental health to working with hospitals, school district, and even in school programs. Um, Also working, as I said, with community health, and then even running community centers, so to speak, community resource centers there in Riviera Beach. I did a lot of work there. So I was able to gather all of those experiences and now bring them into the private practice setting where I am just loving what I do. And I have to say that one of my areas of focus as I'm working with clients is to be able to meet clients where they are, absolutely. And some of those clients that come in are in the area of faith, right? So they're Christians. And so that also is my heart. So I'm able to help them to connect the dots between faith and mental health. And I do have a social media platform. I do have a podcast as well. And with the social media platform and the podcast, that's one of the things that I really am advocating for and trying to build awareness around is helping people to understand that, as I say, put your hands together and do this, it's all connected. It's all connected. And so helping them to connect the dots between faith and mental health is something that's really important to me, and I feel like God has, like placed on my heart to do. Um, let's see, what else? I also do training in the community. In fact, this month, at the beginning of this month, I had just did a free training at the Bridges of Riviera Beach for their Mother's Day. And it was helping them, let's see, the topic was mind over matter. And so we had an opportunity to get into some real conversations about how to process feelings, because we know that when you're in a threatening situation, your thinking brain shuts down, no executive functioning going on there. You're just operating from the seat of your emotions, but we never really learn how to process our emotions. That's not taught in school anywhere, and we definitely don't learn it from our parents, right? And so being able to give the ladies, first of all, names of emotions, and then having them to kind of reflect on, okay, when was a time that I felt this way, or how have I coped with these emotions when I felt them, and is this a healthy way or an unhealthy way of coping? And then how to reframe that was very impactful. And in fact, it led to them inviting me to come either monthly or quarterly. We still have to work that out, to continue working with the ladies because they hadn't had opportunities to speak on that level, and just real talk about how we can have these negative ways of coping with these emotions that we all have and don't know how to express.
Oh, that is so awesome, Terry. I know that you had something recent that my pastor was at, and she absolutely loved it. She said it was phenomenal. Tell us about Bridges. I'm not sure that everyone out there in the community knows about Bridges, but the population that you serve at Bridges, can you let us know, who or what that population is?
Right. So Bridges provides services for parents of children up to 8 years old. And I know there's 10 different Bridges in Palm Beach County. I'm no longer with Bridges. They just had me to come in and do that special group for the women. But they are providing resources and connection and linkage to resources. I know they provide parent-child activities, parenting workshops, and kind of support groups for families, especially if they have those children up to 8 years old.
That is so amazing. So, in terms of what would you tell the community in terms of like the parents that have young children, where I was a single mom, for a long period of time in my life, so I know it's difficult,
Yeah.
in terms of dealing with your mental health and having young children, what would you tell the community?
To listen to your children. That
Listen.
is yes, listen to your children. Their feelings are real. The old school stuff about you child stay in your place and you don't have nothing to worry about because you got a roof over your head and food on the table. No, these children are going through. There are children who are attempting suicide. There are children who are self-harming. Listen to your children and take what they say seriously. I deal with a lot of victims of trauma. Um, in my private practice, a lot of adult victims of trauma who have carried the burden of being blamed for being abused, either sexually abused, and they carry that burden for years. Years. They're adults, 40, 50 years old, and they're coming in, they're breaking down because they tried to tell their parents, this has happened to me, and the parent didn't believe them, or the parent didn't know what they were, they try to, brush it off. There are some parents who do, take what their children say seriously, but anytime a child comes to you and they are able to explain in detail sexual things that happen to them, you must take that seriously. And the damage that is done to them by not taking it seriously is, I cannot even find the words, but they live that out throughout their lives. So listen to your children. There are some serious things going on, even in elementary schools, and it is not like it used to be at all. It is really very serious. That would be the primary thing.
That is
I didn't mean to get so deep, but it is deep.
That is awesome. And this is what we need to hear over and over and over again. It's the deep stuff,
Yeah.
it's the deep stuff that parents don't want to hear. It's too deep for them. And the thing about it is that It's not too deep because you had that same deep feeling. And
Okay.
and it's like, why now when you have a child, you don't want to talk about it because you think it's so deep. No, it's deep. You did it. You felt that way. Your mama felt that way. Their mama felt that way, but nobody wanted to talk about it. So like when I was raising my kids, because I was raised in the church and I was raised, by a very strict mom, and she was
Mm-hmm.
raised by a very strict parent, and there are things that we just could not talk about. So
Exactly.
like embarrass my kids because I would ask the questions, are you feeling this way? And I wanted to know about, the science behind everything, and are you having this feeling because now you're reaching this age and this should be going,
Right.
and they would laugh at me, and and then they would get embarrassed or whatever. They would think it's funny, but I did that because I could not talk. I couldn't.
Right.
And
Right.
being a victim of trauma myself, and did not open up to her mom because I was afraid. I
Mm-hmm.
did molestation as a child and being raped,
Yes.
by my manager. I dealt with that and I suppressed it. And when you
Yes.
talk about suppression for me, because you're the clinician, quickly, like if you don't open up and you don't talk to anyone, because I found myself, and I know, about little girl Lisa, and I found myself looking for love, in the wrong
Yep.
place. I have my dad in my life and, wanting that security, but I could not express myself. And the way I expressed myself, I was very, people would call me fast, but I wasn't fast. I was always
Mm.
outgoing, but there was something that was turned on to me that should not have been unlocked at the age of
At
5 and
that
6,
age.
6 years old. This should not have happened. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, talk about that, Terry.
So you mentioned suppression. And of course, that's what we do to get along. That's how we have learned to cope. You'll be all right, or sweeping it under the rug. So suppression is actually a conscious way, a conscious thing that we do to get by. And then there's repression, which is an unconscious way of coping with things. And people who go through trauma can actually experience blocks in their memory, right? So even as I'm interviewing people that come in when they're first coming in for therapy, based on the things that they're telling me, I can pinpoint easily. Okay, this person has some trauma, and that trauma actually goes into different manifestations in their emotional behavior and their emotional and physical behavior. So those manifestations can be mental illness. So, for example, anxiety and depression. Both of those are very closely tied to trauma and will manifest in their lives. As I think it was Issa that said, my colleague Issa that said earlier, trauma lives in your body. It's in your nervous system. It's in your memory. And so as they go out, especially if they've never talked about this trauma, they've never been able to process it, they never had anybody to say, I'm sorry that that happened to you, but you are not what happened to you. If they haven't had those processes, then what they do is end up living that thing out because they think that I am my trauma. They think that that's who I am. And so they go about their lives living it out and repeating cycles. But those cycles can't be addressed and they can't break those cycles until they come into a setting where they can feel safe, where they can feel understood, be heard, be seen, and know that it's confidential and begin that process of healing. I always say you cannot heal what you do not reveal. And it's very true.
That's
Very
really
true.
good. I like that. You cannot heal what you cannot reveal. So parents, I mean, please, please listen to your children. What about listening to the unspoken word?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So when you see changes or differences in their behavior, so if your child gets withdrawn, they start to withdraw or isolate. They no longer have the motivation to do their schoolwork or hang out with their friends. Um, their clothing may change, right? A lot of kids start gravitating towards the kind of dark stuff, anime, a lot of anime, a lot of dark clothing. They want their rooms dark. The music that they're listening to, the television shows that they're watching, all of those things are so very important. See if their friends, like their friend groups, do their friend groups start to change? Were they involved in extracurricular activities and now they no longer have any interest in those? Are they short-tempered? Quick to kind of pop off, as they say, quick to be irritable or angry, have their diets changed. All of those are things that are very important to watch in terms of your kids to know whether or not something may be going on with them. And then again, I would like to piggyback off of my colleagues who talked about the stigma that surrounds getting help and therapy. And so I would encourage parents, uh, and I have to be real and say that, a lot of the parents have gone through the same thing that the children have gone through, right? And as you said, the grandparents went through those things too, and nobody knew how to talk about it. Nobody knew how to open up and talk about it. They would oftentimes blame themselves that they're the victims. And I have to say, I love the Lord, but the church has hurt a lot of people. There's a lot of church hurt uh, because of judgment based on what they see and not really understanding what has went on and being able to meet people where they're at. So again, when you are looking at your child and observing and those red flags that I just named are areas that you want to investigate. And oftentimes children won't be able to tell you because they're afraid. They're afraid that they've done something wrong, right? That they're going to be hurt. And sometimes, just depending on how that abuse may have occurred, the abuser will tell the child, well, if you say something, then that's really going to hurt your parents or it's really going to hurt me. And they've created a relationship with that child to make the child very confused and think that they care about them, right? You don't want to hurt me, or you don't want to hurt your parent, or you hurt yourself because you did something, or they make the child feel like they did something wrong. So I'm saying all that to say that if you recognize these signs in your child, if you see them, observe them, uh, then it's okay to say to your child, do you want to talk to somebody? It's okay to do that. In fact, it is the best thing to do because as much as we want to believe that our children will tell us everything, they don't. They don't tell us everything because they don't want to get in trouble, or they don't want to be looked upon in a bad way, or they don't want to hurt you. They want to protect you. They may even want to, as crazy as it sounds, protect the person that abused them because it's a confusing thing for them. So that would be the next thing, is to ignore the stigma and get help for your child. Get help for yourself. We need that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really, really good, Terry. Oh my God, this is so phenomenal. You said so much. I want to speak to the church hurt, and just being a woman of God myself and in ministry and I have experienced church hurt as well. I've come to find out that people are people, and if we don't know, we need to, number one, parishioners. I'm hoping there's some parishioners out here, clergy, get some knowledge on mental health. Your congregation, people are suffering, and that's one thing that I have to appreciate about my pastor. You know, my pastor is my friend, my best friend, and she's been my mentor. And she's the first one that noticed a difference in me because she was my boss at the time. You know, she wasn't even my pastor at the time, but she was my friend, my mentor, my boss, and she noticed the difference. But because of the things that she's walked through with me and the love that she has for me, she took the extra step and went the extra mile to gain knowledge about my illness. And you do that about people you love. Parishioners church, I know it's an organization. We know that. We know the church needs money or whatever, but it is about the souls. At the end of the day, it is about the souls. People come to church because they need help. They need to be refueled. They need Jesus in their lives. We're there to share the gospel. We're there to equip the people so they can go back out there and minister. We can equip if you have hurting people. You cannot equip people on top of hurt. You just can't do it. So get to know mental health, the issues, the conditions, what can happen. The Bible talks about my people perish because the lack of knowledge. Long time now, you know, it's been, you know, you pray about it and it's going to be okay. Yes, I believe in the power of prayer. And I know that it's nobody but God that has kept my sanity. I don't give no man the glory for that. I give God the glory, but I give him the glory for my psychiatrist. I give him the glory for my therapist. I thank God that there is medication available to me, you know, but I still trust him. I still trust him for a divine healing. But we have to put things in perspective. Like I always think about Paul. Paul had a thorn, you know, and we don't know what that thorn was. We don't know if it was lust or we don't know if it was an illness. It could have been a mental illness. We don't know what it was. But God came back and said, but my grace is sufficient. So his grace graces people. We live, he gave us to each other. Parishioners hear what is being said. People are committing suicide when they come to you and they say they need help. They need more than just you laying hands on them. Follow up with them and get some resources. We provide resources. Go to websites, NAMI website. You have therapists here on today. We provide resources on our websites. You got to get them to someone. You have Healthier Delray. You have the neurobehavioral centers. You have JFK North. Now we know that those are, some of them are crisis centers as well. And you know, there's a stigma there, and there's, you know, some validity that you go in and you go right. And then I'm getting ready to bring up Alan because Alan, guys, has to speak. He's awesome too. But when you go to a crisis center, they're going to deal with the immediate crisis. And just like if you were diagnosed with high blood pressure, there is follow up. If you're diagnosed with diabetes, there is follow up. There's always some type of follow-up connected to some type of illness. So don't just go sit in somewhere for 48 hours or go take your child to a doctor or you go to a doctor, get a diagnosis, and then walk away from it. It is real. And is the enemy, but he doesn't have all power. But you have to do something. Faith without works is dead. I'm done. I'm done preaching. But that was good.
It's very good. And you said something that, because I know you, as you're speaking to some of my colleagues, you asked them about barriers. And in line with, or in addition to what they have said, I think that you hit on another barrier is when you enter treatment or access therapy or get support, it is not a one and done. It is a process. And if you think about the fact that it was a process for you to get into the mess, whatever that mess is, it's going to take a process for you to get out of that. And one of the things that makes therapy effective is the relationship that the person has with the therapist. Well, you don't get a relationship in one or two visits. It's a process, right? For them to be able to begin pulling back the layers of the onions to get to the core of what's going on and helping them to get new coping skills and new perspectives and new ways of thinking and looking at things so that they can heal,
Good.
right? So that would be the other thing, is that, if people do decide, they make the choice to access help, right? Stick with it. Stick with it.
That's right. That's right. I see my therapist even on the good days, just to check in. So it's so important. Terry, you have been phenomenal.
Thank you.
Absolutely phenomenal. We got to get one of your teachings. Get something together where you can do a teaching, as well. But yeah,
Yes.
this was
Love
so.
doing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please put your information in the chat if you have not, and hopefully our information can be shared. If my wonderful tech pastor, she's actually helping out not our senior pastor, but one of our pastors is actually in the background helping. If she could put the information also on Facebook. It's a lot, going on in the background as well. But someone just put out here, I believe it's Kenya, that just shared, spill the tea on health. Let's discuss mental health and the church. And that is, it's actually tomorrow from 3 to 6. And it's Achievement Centers Foundation at 555 Northwest 4th Street in Delray. On tomorrow, and it is a free event. I'm telling you, please, I love it. Take advantage of this. Yes, it's called Spill the Tea on Health, and it's on Eventbrite, and it's tomorrow in Delray, and Healthier Delray has shared that. So thank you so much, and thank you so much, Pastor Tiffany, for also sharing that as well. Thank you. Thank you. We are going to move along to Mr. Alan Mednick. He is a phenomenal gentleman that is Alan here? Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Yes, he's a phenomenal gentleman that I met actually through NAMI. I was looking for someone to talk about suicide prevention, and this is his niche. I mean, he's going to tell his story, but he works in an organization that deals with suicide, and he has different certifications, teach it, as well. So, Mr. Allen, thank you for being so patient. I am giving it over to you. And just inform the masses of all you do and what we can do in terms of combating this demon out there that's called suicide.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate being here. So again, my name is Alan Mednick. I have been working in the field of suicide prevention for the last 11 years, most of it as a volunteer. And recently I changed careers totally to get into it about a year ago. I do have lived experience. I have ADHD and I have anxiety, but my real beginning into suicide prevention began, like I said, 11 years ago when my daughter, Raven, died by suicide. She was 19 years old, away at college, and so that began the process for me to really try to figure out how to help, what's going on, the reason why this happened. 4 years later, my niece, also Ayla, died by suicide. Ayla was on the spectrum of autism, and we know autistic people have a higher rate of suicide. But again, it was 4 years later, and she happened to be 19 also. My son was 10 years old when my daughter passed away, and at 11, he was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. And there was a lot of battling going on there as far as we saw the signs, we saw what was going on, not waking up for school, not wanting to go to school. When he was in school, he would complain of stomach pains, go to the nurse all the time. So we started taking him, we got him on medication, got him counseling, and everything was progressing there. But again, there was still some issues going on. He was having more problems with his stomach and other things that were happening. There was a lot of talk over here about stigma, which I want to get into in a second. But my background right now is I'm a volunteer with NAMI, which is an incredible organization, has incredible resources. I'm on the Education and Outreach Committee. I'm also a trainer with NAMI with End of Silence and also NAMI Basic, which are phenomenal programs to really spread the word. When we're getting into stigma based about it, we have to talk about why is it a stigma? Why is there stigma out there? Believe it or not, I don't know how old everybody is here, but I'm probably older than most of you. Back in the 60s and 70s, even cancer was a stigma. You couldn't say cancer. Both of my parents died by cancer. Back if this was the 60s or 70s, you'd probably whisper it. My parents died by cancer. You wouldn't say it out loud. It was a stigma. Back in the 80s, I actually started my career in contracting. I was an estimator. I was a mechanical engineer. And my first job in the field was going to a hospital that the company I worked for completed the work on. It's called a chiller. So I had to go into every room in the hospital, basically just to examine to make sure what was completed, that it was completed right, and everything was fixed right. They told me there were two rooms I couldn't go into. I couldn't go into the prison cells or the prison area, and I couldn't go into the rooms where the doors were closed and there was a yellow sign on there. So I'm going through all the rooms and I'm checking everything. And in this one room, I see a patient on the bed and shaking. And so I took a look and I saw on the door, there was a yellow sign there. I wasn't supposed to be in that room. The nurse or whoever was in the room last did not close the door. So I didn't look on the door. I just walked in. It happened to be the reason why you couldn't go in those rooms because those were AIDS patients. And if we know in the 80s, the stigma behind AIDS was if I was in the same area with the person, I was going to catch AIDS. If I breathed in the same air, you were going to catch AIDS. And that's what I thought. I was nervous for the next 2 weeks. I thought I was going to get AIDS because I was in that room with that person. We know that's not true. That was a stigma. We know we could, treat them as a normal person, as a normal, they live a normal life. So these are the stigmas that we try to, how do we get outside of the stigma of suicide? And we are getting there. It is getting better. It's a lot better than it's been even 15 years ago. But a lot has to be with what we call be the voice. We have to talk about it. We have to open up more about it. I will tell you, the more that I go into areas and talk about my lived experience as a loss survivor, I have people come up to me all the time and ask me questions, ask me how to help. What can I do? Where can I go? And that's one of the biggest issues out there, or where are the resources? Are there resources out there? Yes, there's a lot of resources, but people don't know where to turn or where to go. So that's why I love these type of platforms that Ms. Lisa has, and we're spreading the word that it is helpful. One of the other areas that I want to talk about as far as stigma goes is in a lot of the conversations I have, I actually try to talk to stigma, mental health, and in the same category as physical health. Mental health really is physical health. If you look at a lot of things, and I look at it this way, what is the brain? The brain is an organ. What's the heart? The heart's an organ. If you have a heart attack, if you have a stroke, what do they tell you to do? They tell you to eat right, watch your diet, exercise, relax. You might have to take some medication and so forth. Well, if someone has a mental health condition, what do they tell you the things that you should be doing are? You should be relaxing, eating right, exercising. You might have to take medication. It's the same thing. There's an organization that I work with out of Boca Raton called the 22 Project. And they're a phenomenal organization that uses hyperbaric chambers to help with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries. They actually provide scans. The person that founded that has a nuclear imaging business, and he actually provides scans of the brain, nuclear imaging scans, before the people go into the hyperbaric chambers and after they complete it. There's a difference in the brain. When you look at the brain, and actually I do have a scan here of one of them if you could see it. The top ones are prior to, and the bottom ones are after the treatments. The top ones, you can see all the colors in here. You don't want colors in the brain. You want the brain to be, a healthier brain is a gray matter. So you could see the difference between before and after. It's physical. A lot is physical. So that's why I like to compare mental health. I'd rather just say health instead of mental or physical health. This way we get that stigma out of it. Just a couple of things I'd like to point out. Obviously, the way we also, and the research shows the way we talk about suicide also has an impact on it. When we talk about it, we want to talk and say attempted suicide. We don't want to say failed or successful attempt. We know someone attempted suicide that they are still alive, so we don't have to go that far into it. The other thing is, as far as saying someone died by suicide, we want to say either someone died by suicide, killed himself, but we want to try and stay away from the words like committed suicide, for the reasons being that commit is a crime, and we're trying to take, again, that stigma out of it. So these are just things that we've learned along the way. There are layers that we need to do to really prevent suicide and help. The first thing is getting the stigma out and be able to talk openly and freely about suicide, as we do in every other conversation. The next levels are training people how to identify if somebody's in crisis, how to ask the question, how to listen to them, how to get them to help. That's what I do with my full-time work. I work for a company called Living Works. Living Works is the global leader in suicide prevention education. Some people might have heard of a training called Assist. We have another program called Safe Talk. Assist is actually the training that 988 call centers use and that the mobile crisis units use. It's an incredible tool to build confidence in people. There are basically three reasons why people don't identify or don't try to help somebody that might be in crisis. That's because they either miss the signs, they dismiss the signs, or they avoid the signs. And they avoid the signs because they say, I'm not a mental health counselor. I'm going to say the wrong thing. Well, what we believe and what we try to help people to identify is that everybody has a role to play in suicide prevention. I'll give one quick story on that, and then I know I talked for a while, so I'll wrap it up. But basically, my son was 15 years old, and three of his friends called me in a week's time. It was a Thursday night, the following Thursday, and then a Sunday, and all of them told me that they were worried about him because he was texting things that they saw were identifying with suicide. They were very scared, nervous, and they were brave enough to be able to reach out to me and tell me these things, and we were able to get him help, and eventually he did go into an inpatient facility for 10 days. It took the friends to identify, because me and my wife didn't see at home what was going on with him. That's what typically happens. I talk about the biggest places that people could help are at the work and at schools, because when the kids come home, for instance, how often do you see them? You see them maybe when they walk in the door. If you're at work, you're not going to see them until you get home from work. A lot of times, hopefully they're doing the homework, so they're in the room doing homework, hopefully. But you might see them at dinner, and then maybe before they go to bed. You don't see them a lot of time. The same thing with families. So the people at school, the peers at school, the peers at work are going to see these people the most and be able to identify, what do you see, hear, sense, or learn in somebody that's going to say that they're in crisis. So those are the type of trainings that we teach. Again, what you see, hear, sense, or learn in somebody to give you a gut feeling that they're in crisis, how to ask the question, and the question has to be, are you thinking about suicide? Sometimes when people are going through this, that, or the other thing, they're thinking about suicide. Are you thinking about suicide? That word suicide is very important, and you really don't want to say, are you thinking of hurting yourself? I'll give you one last example why. A lot of us go to the doctors, and when we go to the doctors, I just recently went for a physical, and the questions they asked are, do you have any diabetes in your family? Do you have any cancer in your family? Are your parents still alive? The next question the nurse asked me was, I'm sorry, I have to ask this question. Have you had any suicidal thoughts in the last day or a week? Have you been depressed? Prefaced it by saying, I'm sorry, I have to ask this question. Now, I'm sure a lot of us have heard that. What does that say when they ask that, when they say that? The first thing that you think is, they don't want to know the answer. They're scared to know the answer. If I really tell them that I am thinking about suicide, or what are they going to do? They don't want to know. They don't know how to handle it. This is the reason why it's so important to be trained into how to proceed and how to identify and what to do. And we have these things called keep safe connections. So I will leave it with that. And if there's anything else I can help with.
Wow, that is so good, Alan. Hold on one second. Let me okay, I'm off mute now. Alan, that was so good. That is so true. When you go to the doctor, they're like, I'm sorry to ask this, but have you had these thoughts? Have you had this? And it shifts your mind, and you begin to just, at first, everything was okay. You yes, yes, yes. But then you go into like a slump when, they ask those type of questions, or it can cause you, to go into a slump. I wanted to, just for those that are out there in the airways, I wanted you to explain why, I know you mentioned about suicide and not saying committed because it's a crime, but why is it so important that we ask the question, are you thinking about suicide, or do you have a plan in place? Why is all of that so important?
Yeah, that's a great question, because first of all, a lot of times there are two things that we know that people are when they're suicidal. They feel like nobody understands them, first of all, and then they also feel like they're alone. And again, that nobody's around them, they're alone. Even if I do feel like I could understand you and I know what you're going through, I can't tell you I understand you. You're going to be like, no, how can you understand what I'm going through? Nobody can understand what I'm going through. You can't do that. But what you can do is say, hey, I'm here. I care about you. You're not alone. I'm here to support you. And that's a big factor in trying to help somebody. So by asking them those questions, saying, hey, sometimes when people go through this, that, and the other thing, they're thinking about suicide. Are you thinking about suicide? That word suicide is I do these trainings and I have people read that out loud. And when they say it, they say, are you thinking about suicide? And the word suicide, because it's a hard word. So what it does is it actually says, I care enough about you. Again, going back to the doctor thing that I said, if you say to somebody, are you thinking about hurting yourself? It's kind of like, I'm afraid to get to that point. If you're thinking about, there's different ways to hurt yourself, but suicide is, basically killing yourself. So it just shows that you care about them, that you're not alone. And also that word suicide, when the person hears it, it kind of shakes them up too. It kind of says, wow, I really am thinking about this. There's a lot of meaning to it, because when you're going through this whole thing, you're trying to build trust with the person. And you want to be honest with the person. You never want to tell the person something that that you want to tell them just to try to get them to stop that, because if they ever thinking about that again, about suicide again, they're not going to trust you at that point. So you got to build trust with the person too.
Yes, yes, that is so good. So what do you recommend if you're talking with someone and they are not really responding when you ask them, are they thinking about suicide, and they don't answer at all? What do you recommend?
That's a great question, because there's different things. Again, when we're going through this, if you ask them that question and they don't say anything at all, first of all, you want to give it time. You don't want to be impatient with them. You want to make sure that you're on the same level. So the voice tone you're using is really important. You don't want to be excited. You don't want to say, what are you crazy? You don't want to be like that. You want to be very calm. You want to be patient with them. If you have to take time just to leave a pause and leave silence, you do silence. I've been on the phone with people where I've had 5 minutes where I haven't said anything to them. I've done several interventions, and there have been times where I just do that. As long as I hear them breathing or crying on the other line, then I know they're there, then I know they're okay. But what you want to do is you want to ask them the question again. And a lot of times you'll know the person. Most of the time you will know the person. So basically you're just going to say, hey, I know you. You're not like this. This is not like you. There must be something going on. And again, go through the question again. Most of the time that will get the person to open up. In the end, if the person says, no, I'm not thinking about it, and that gut feeling says, no, you're lying to me, you don't want to say straight out you're lying. But if you can't get it out of them, at the end result, you got to go to what we call our keep safe connections and try to get somebody else involved and reach out for somebody that might be trained in another type of intervention called assist, or a mental health professional, or there's the mobile crisis unit, which I absolutely love, which the mobile crisis unit comes out, they're trained interventionists that come out and talk to the person.
Right,
You never
right.
want to leave. If you get that gut feeling and that gut feeling says they're lying or they are suicidal, you never want to leave them alone.
Okay, okay. That's really, really good. So to the parents, that there may be some parents out there in the community who have experienced a loss of a loved one by, and not just parents, family members, a loved one by way of suicide. So what would be some solace to the parent? What can you say to some parents, being a parent yourself, that may still have other children or may feel guilt or shame?
Yeah. So obviously, when you're going through a loss, you are going to have different stages. There's going to be the guilt stage, the anger stage. There's going to be a lot of different stages. The one that I always tell people is I didn't go through the anger stage at my daughter for dying, for doing it. But a lot of people do have anger at the person. How can you do this to us? All these stages, what I tell people, are okay. It's a process. Everybody has to go through their own way of dealing with it. What I try to do is I just try to, first of all, give the person space, but also give the person knowing that I'm there for them. I'm here. You could just go over there and hang with them. You don't want to force the person into anything, but you want to give them a lot of different support systems. The one support system that always is really good is the group counseling or group support. That helps a lot. But everybody's a little bit different, and you just got to give the person a little bit of time to figure out what the best way for them is. If counseling, obviously counseling is awesome. I always suggest to people too is when you go into counseling, it doesn't hurt to go to 7 different counselors to find the right person that's right for you. You know, each counselor isn't the right fit. So you want to make sure you could go and get that right person. But there's a lot of different areas of support out there. And again, I would have people go to organizations like NAMI, look on there and look at the support system that's there for the resources. It's a great tool. You could even call 211, and 211 is a phenomenal resource to actually go and ask questions on what to do. Because again, the resources out there are abundant. It's just where are they and how do you find them? So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, and in part, and then I want you to talk to that parent. I want you to look at the camera and talk to that parent or that family member that may be feeling a sense of shame because their loved one has died by suicide.
Yeah, I would be straight with them and just tell them straight out that whatever you're feeling, it's okay. I do tell people that the guilt feeling is okay. You're going to go through the guilt feeling. I will tell you that I tell them straight out, it's not their fault. I do say it's not your fault. But feeling guilty is part of the process. So don't feel like that's not abnormal. Everybody goes through that. So that's a really important part, but I do really want to tell them that they aren't guilty, because they'll start going back, looking at signs, looking at these things and everything. And a lot of times, I don't want to tell people if you were trained, you would, be able to recognize some a little bit easier, but we all miss the signs. I missed the signs. I look back 11 years now and I look at the signs that were there. And I realized that, even though I could see the signs now, you can't go back. But I tell them straight out, we got to find what the right, they need to take a little bit of time, because depending on how soon it happened, but they need a little bit of time to themselves. They need time off. Some people like me, it was going to work. I had to work. I had to keep going to distract myself. But eventually I went to private counseling, and then I went to group counseling. And it just, depending on what your fit is, everybody's a little different.
That is good. That is really good, Alan. Oh, goodness. I so love it because, suicide is really running rampant, unfortunately, in our communities, all over the world. And it has really increased amongst the Black community, and children,
Sure.
and that's what really breaks, my heart. You have our youth, and there are signs out there. So what would you tell that parent that has another child, that is still living, and in order to not, I'm trying to see how I say it, like, you don't want to be overbearing,
So
child?
So that's a really good question because that's how I was. I was paranoid with my son, um, overbearing, giving in to everything, couldn't say no because I thought if I said no, that would be the end of it. And, especially after he was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. You still do have to be a parent. You still do have to, and the other thing I do want to emphasize is we did have an EIP with my son at school because of his depression and anxiety. And we went to the school. You also have to advocate for your son or for your child. It's really important. We would go and we had EIPs in place for him, and the teachers didn't follow it the way they were supposed to, and we had to go in and advocate, or they didn't want to allow something. And we went to his psychologist and psychiatrist, and they suggested these things, and we had to go back in and fight for some of the things for him. So it's so important. Don't let the school dictate what's going to happen. I know the school is a lot of times trying to do the best for your kids, but sometimes you know better than what the school knows sometimes. So advocate in the best interest. So I'm sorry, I forgot the first part of the question.
Yeah, no, that was
Okay.
good. You did. You answered it. Yeah, like don't be, the overbearing. That was, my concern because I can see a parent being that way
Yeah.
because they don't want anything to happen to them. They don't want to be, feel guilty and they want to prevent it, as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I will tell you the first year after my daughter, I was very self-consumed and relied and to myself, to the point where I wouldn't mention my daughter's name in the house or in front of anybody. That other year, the next year when my son started, and I think my son was so focused on my depression and me going without, he was focused on me and not focused on what he was going through. So I should have been more focused on him than I was on myself at that time. And those are guilt things that you go through too. But once you realize, you do have to make sure that you pay the attention to them too and focus on them. But you also have to be a parent. And that's where I differed. My wife was a very strong parent and very good and disciplined and doing what she needed to do, where I was too weak. So I do think you still have to be a parent.
That is so good. And to think about it, I so appreciate your transparency that, you have gotten to the point where you can identify because none of us are perfect, and that's a situation that, we don't plan for. And you have to, it's almost like trial by error. You have to, learn how to go through that. But because of what occurred, you are now pouring back into other people and have gotten educated, in this area of suicide, and to tell other people what to and what not to do is so amazing. I so appreciate you, Alan, for even being
No,
ready to stand, amongst the community and, talk about this.
No, I appreciate everything you do in bringing this to the community. It's so important. Again, we all have to be a voice to try and help out and break the stigma and let people know it's okay. I will give one quick story here and just a real brief. I used to have a TV show called Real Convo, and I was at the station and I was in the green room waiting to go on. There was a show currently on. There was a gentleman that was in the room with me, probably around 47 to 50 years old, that was going on the show before me. And he goes, he was waiting there with me. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And I told him that I'm a host of a show in mental health, and I told him what we do. And he just came out and said, "Yeah, I have bipolar." And I'm like, "Okay." And he just went on for 20 minutes and told me his whole story and everything. When he was done, I said to him, "Who have you ever told that story to?" He said, "Besides my parents and my wife, nobody." Nobody's ever, and this is a gentleman that's had bipolar pretty much his whole life, but I don't know if he was ashamed or never brought it up or anything, but just because I mentioned mental health, he was able to talk about it. So it's so important for all of us to share our stories and in a respectful way, but share our stories, letting people know that I'm here for you. Wear a badge on you saying, if you need help, I'm here for you. Sometimes just by saying hello, I care about you, or asking, is there something going on? Can I help you? Bring somebody, could get somebody out of a thought of suicide. The one thing that we always have to do is we have to get that, but between the thought and the action, we got to expand time. the more time we could create between the thought of it and the action on it, that's where we save lives. That's where the life comes out of the person.
So,
And so,
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, that was very, because again, I just want to, the only other thing I want to say is we focus in a lot on male suicides. And I just want to bring out that even though males die 4 times more by suicide than females, females actually attempt suicide 1.8 times more than males do. So there's a lot that we can't, and the point behind that is we got to take a look at everybody. We got to look at everybody, and just because somebody doesn't have anybody in the family that they think died by suicide or has a mental health condition or anything, doesn't mean that that person doesn't have a mental health condition. It's just like, if you don't have any diabetes or cancer in the family, doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. So we got to look at everybody in general, and that's why everybody has a role to play in trying to, in this fight.
That is so good. Thank you so much, Alan. I like what you just ended it off with. We have to look at everybody, and we cannot judge the book by its cover. We cannot judge because one day a person may not have a plan. We can't say, well, they're not going to commit suicide because they don't have a plan, or they don't want to commit suicide because, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. We have to really take it seriously and get some help. Kenya is putting in the chat. It's been outstanding. Ella, we're going to go to our winner in a minute. But Kenya also put a 988 Lifeline link in the chat, the National Suicide Prevention Month, all month, and that month is the month of September, and we will be doing something in the month of September. I've already gotten our speaker, so yeah, and we'll definitely get together and advertise that all month. Mental health advocates, prevention organizations, survivors, allies. Yeah, I need some of those survivors, allies, and community members, family members as well. Unit to promote suicide prevention awareness. That is so true, Kenya. That is really good. She also put in a chat something earlier I saw about the families, the abuse hotline, and there's actually a web page that you can go to. She also put I turned it on by mistake, and I'm like, but she also put a podcast in there, and I think it's her podcast. You all have got to tune in. Before we close, because it's pressing on my heart, I have got to ask Terry a quick question. If Terry, if you could please, if you're still there, if Terry is still there, or yes,
I am here.
I have a quick question. Since you're a clinician, if you have someone that they need help and they just won't get the help, what do you do? What is your recommendation for the community?
First, to be patient with them, and I'm assuming you're talking about just a lay person that is with a family or friend. Okay, definitely to be patient with them, and to let them know that there's an open door for you to be able to listen to them. You could even say to them, "I'll go with you. If you want to, I'll help you through the process." Also, let them know of the different resources. It's a process to go get help. People think about it and then they put it down, and then they'll think about it and they'll put it down, and things will get better for a little while, and then they'll run into a crisis and then they think about it again. But it could take years for someone to actually take the steps to get help. But I would say again to be patient with them, listen to them, let them know here are some different places where you could find some resources. Let them know that you're not judging them, but that you care about them, and things could get better if they would seek out support. Yeah, that's what I would advise. But that main thing is not to be short-tempered with them, but to be patient with them as they kind of go through their own process of getting to the point of acquiring help.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you all so much, so very much. Everyone that has logged in, that has spoken to our speakers. Oh my goodness, our panelists, guests. I so appreciate you all. I know that the community has been blessed by this information. I really charge you as a community to advocate, to help someone when it comes, and help yourself when it comes down to your mental health. Help yourself. We have a winner, and I like to announce her, Miss Ella Gold. Thank you so much for coming in and participating and referring and being referred. Miss Ella Gold will receive a $25 Wawa gift card. I so appreciate that. I do have your information, your email address, and I will reach out to you momentarily so I can get that gift card to you. But thank you so much. And when you see these flyers, come out, share it with someone, because it takes a village, not just to raise a child, but to help a community. It takes a village. We need each other. I have to say thank you to my mental health committee members that are here. Thank you so much for being here. And also to our tech person, thank you so much for taking us through this. And finally, my pastor again, I appreciate you. I appreciate Nami. Nami had to be at another event today. There were a few members of NAMI that had to be at another event. So I said, I'll take it on. So I appreciate NAMI. I appreciate everyone who has a hand in mental health, all that you do, Councilman Lawson, Ezsa, everyone. Thank you so much. And you all enjoy the rest of your Saturday. If you can get by Tate's Recreation this afternoon, it is $20 to help towards the cause Sincere 2000. But we have a lot of amateur boxers that are going to be there, and we have the Mike Tyson that will be there as well as some other prominent individuals that will be in the house. All right, be safe, please. Who is the winner of the gift card? Is you, Ella. Ella, yes, I will be reaching out to you. I'm not sure if you heard me, but
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah.
You're welcome. So you got a $25 Wawa gift card, and I will be reaching out to you, Mike. So I do have your email, and I'll email you. If you want to shoot your number in the chat right quick, you could. If you want to chat to me right quick, I'll ask Tech just to hold on for a minute. Thank you all. You all have such a blessed day.